I do. So we're on record. Whatever you say is gonna be recorded and institutionalized. It's now 12:03 PM. This is a regular meeting of the Public Safety Committee, March 13th, 2013. We do have an agenda, there's Health and Human Services. We do have an agenda, and since you're just getting here, do you want me to drop you down? I know you're alphabetically, you're first for some reason. You want us to start
No,
with
I
some of
can
the...
always start off by
Okay,
just saying
very
I have
good.
nothing to say.
We had just had this conversation. So we're just starting the meeting. It's perfect timing. And
Thank you.
so for Health and Human Services, do you have anything that we need to know about that's going on in the area of public safety, food-borne issues, health issues?
No, I
flu
wanted to
season?
say that as the Iditarod ended last night, that did start from a public health issue, diphtheria, which is part of DTaP. You'll hear it called DTAP.
Okay.
A doesn't mean anything, except it's improved, so people have less side effects. So it's diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. So we do encourage people to get immunizations for those, and diphtheria is basically a thing in the past because we have improved so much on immunizations there.
But
So-
now, I understand pertussis, which is like whooping cough, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's coming back, is that right?
That's been higher this year and in 2012 than normal, and so, we actually, we do have vaccinations if you want to come to the Department of Health, or you can get them at your primary care giver, sorry, I gotta catch my breath, I actually
That's
ran,
what I said.
I know, on ice in hills. So, but that is decreasing as well. I mean, it was on the increase, but it is decreasing. There was a case, remember the peas with the Campylobacteria?
Yes,
With the
yes.
pea incident in the valley? We had, 28 cases of that same disease in the Kenai from some raw milk, but that seems to be, under control.
Okay.
So that's sort of the bug report.
No pandemics, flu season, we're coming
No.
out of that, aren't we?
Yes.
Flu season, kind of. And I asked, I think last time, and I'm sorry, I don't recall, if somebody still wants the flu vaccine, can they get it? I've seen cars in Fred Meyer, the pharmacies and stuff,
Yes.
carry that. Does the health department do anything for high risk?
Health department, as far as flu shots, is, because they get the flu shot from the state, they're only allowed to give it to they only give it to a certain type of vulnerable population or certain age children, so it's basically better to go to your primary giver or Fred's or Cars.
Okay. And I
the other
know
people.
later, farther out, I was talking with someone from, I think from Health, reference, using the library in October for some sort of a zombie scavenger kind of thing, and I think it's part of OEM, and they're not here today.
That's still in discussions. It was quite a successful event at with 700 or 800 people showing up. Let me just say that's still under discussion what we're gonna do there, because we actually were thinking instead of giving a piece of candy for people as treatment from the infection of the zombies, that we would offer flu shots at that point. That's in September. August is our month when we usually give immunizations. So we're experimenting what that would take and what audience would be best served, if that's the best audience, but there was a lot of people that showed up for that event.
So actually, it sounded, first, zombie, it kind of sounded like out there, but it was really, apparently fairly fun, and a lot of people, there's several volunteer groups that are being enjoined and trying to work through that too.
Well, and zombies are still a hot item. There's
Yeah.
a series now on TV, so, if it works, it works, and if it brings the right people in, we'll aim to go in that direction.
Mr. Train?
I'm not touching that.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Oh, I'm sorry, for the record, it's Janet Vietmeyer, Director of Health and Human Services. And so fire department, any?
Good afternoon. Jim Vignola, Deputy Chief of Anchorage Fire. Chief Bishu is back tomorrow, so I'm standing in for him today. Just a couple of things, and I'll answer any questions you got. I think everybody knows that Station 9 has been pushed off and postponed until further strategic review of the fire department.
That's,
I'd say personally,
is that
I was
Huffman?
a little disappointed. A lot of work's already been put towards that, and a lot of planning, a lot of money already spent, but understand that the position that was taken.
Is that the Huffman station?
That's the Huffman station that was replacement for the Huffman station. Fire Station 3, the Airport Heights Fire Station, is still in the process of going through its motions to purchase the land for it and rebuild of it.
Which land will that be?
I think they're still looking really hard at the land in front of the Pacific Northern Academy, a 1.5 to 2 acre lot right there. But there's some issues with the electrical easement easement that they'll have to work through or work around potentially, so we're still.
What would the access point be to get on?
Forgot.
Right at Virgo?
Yeah.
And not a concern, I think there's a little hill or something that comes in.
No, not with all that new, with that new construction they put through in there and everything, there's not much issue, so.
Put you closer over towards, a little farther east and get you
A little farther
straight shot
east,
over
a
up
little
in
farther,
Mountain View.
yeah, and we had a corner, a section, what we call a grid in Mountain View, where we have a high call volume, but we were having a difficult time meeting our time response that we do within the 4 minutes for our apparatus, so, that'll definitely get us there if we move it in that area, or I think there's 2 other potential site selections if that one does not come to fruition.
If I recall the testimony from the public, that was the issue with Station 9, is that there were some site selection studies, but apparently there's community concerns over the buy-in on that particular site, which was a park.
There was,
Well, and we come to find out that might have been told it was a park, but it wasn't dedicated, I don't know what the right term is.
It was
If
never.
people see the land and there's nothing on it, it's a park as far as the public's concerned.
But there's a
The
sign out
problem
there that
is-
says it
I know,
is.
but- I know, but people aren't gonna pay attention to the
Legally,
sign.
it is not, the research
have
was
to
done,
figure out how to
legally
tell
it's
them that.
not, legally it was given to the city by, I cannot remember the lady's name. And it's actually zoned for, multi-residential units. The sign was a handmade sign from the community and they use it to, it's just a wooded area really.
Right.
There's
Natural.
nothing there, it's natural. So the proposal was to take, out of the 9 acres that's theirs, to take the 2 acres on the front, that fronts DeArmond, and dedicate the 7 acres behind to dedicated parkland. But some of the neighbors in the area specifically that would have butted right up against the fire station land, were against it.
Perhaps you can make an offer like every other Friday dinner or something on the house. Maybe that'll sway.
We just have to figure out how to sell it to the public, because the public perceives an empty piece of land as park.
Yeah,
And that's a problem for what you guys wanna do.
yep.
And I know if we tell them we'll dedicate it, the theory is it can never be used, but in reality, we have an opinion from this, whether the city can take it and use it anytime they want, without going to the public for parkland too.
And
That's another way we lose opinions.
And I understand both sides, so, and respect that.
I heard a little discussion, your academy status?
Academy status, we're opening for applications right now until April 28th, I believe. We're hoping to offer the job to qualified applicants by the beginning of July and hopefully start our academy in mid-July.
So the application process open through the 28th, you said?
I believe so. I can double check for that. It's online, so
And then, I'm sorry, you said anticipated academy August?
in July,
July.
start in July.
Okay. Funding, you good with funding to pull this off?
As far as we know, I believe $800,000 was appropriated for it, so, from the last budget period.
Equipment, uniforms?
That'll take care of equipment, uniforms, the wages for the instructors and everything.
Do they do like they do at the police department where they take some people off the line to go be instructors for a period?
Yeah, we usually take a few off the line and then bring in individuals, because we work the 24-hour shift rotation, we bring them in on their, if necessary, on their day off.
It's gonna
Yeah.
impact your overtime, is that, you gonna be able to absorb that too?
That 800,000 will include that.
Mr. Trent?
I just wish them luck.
Yep.
I understand there's some parents in this town who'd like to see their children become firefighters.
I can completely understand that.
What, equipment wise, are you guys fully set on equipment? I know
Equipment wise, we had the 3 ambulances that we had some issues with. Those issues have been resolved with the manufacturer, and the ambulances were repaired and to our specifications and to our standard. So they are actually getting aligned as we speak. We've got 2 of them in service and 1 of them getting ready to come back on the line. We did lose Medic 9 in a motor vehicle accident. Individual going up DeBar Road lost control of her vehicle and hit the ambulance right where the cab meets the box of the ambulance and tweaked the frame pretty bad.
Everybody okay?
Everybody's okay. The patient was fine. The individual was bumped up a little bit and bruised. The paramedic in the back was. He was in the process of transitioning from patient care back to his secure seat when it happened. So But the ambulance is out of service, and right now we're actually trying to determine whether or not it's totaled or to spend the money to fix it versus buying a new one. So,
What year was it? How old was it?
it's early 2000,
Okay, so it might have been,
early, like, I think 2004, 2005.
so it might be nearing the end of its life anyway.
Medic 9 would have been, it probably would have lasted a few more years easily. So,
Anything else?
No, I'm just glad they're all right.
yeah, they're good. We are currently speccing a new, fire engine that, looking to replace, engine 9. Engine 9 was built years ago. It was built as this, rescue pumper, multi-purpose, and it just really doesn't work. It's very tall, it's very top-heavy, pretty much it's, unsafe to drive, and it doesn't carry the equipment really necessary to respond to these motor vehicle accidents that we're seeing on the highways. So, we're gonna get them a traditional engine company or pumper, and then make sure we respond to truck company with all the extrication and equipment in our heavy rescue unit from now on.
Speaking of truck, you had a truck or two that was ordered.
New truck 5 is in service, and truck 5, station 5 is in Spinard. So that was ordered, purchased, and just recently put in service within the last couple weeks. And it will fit in the new fire station.
I was gonna ask you, what's Station 5 status? Is it done?
The new Station 5 was built, the old Station 5 was raised, and the new Station 5 is built on location on the same site. If you get a chance to drive up to Spinard and just look over off to your right as you drive past McRae, and you can see it, it's a beautiful building.
It's open and it's in service?
It's not open and in service yet. They anticipate being done earlier than was originally thought. The problem is they're not gonna be able to move in, cause they have to wait for the thaw to happen so they can get the paving plans to open up and they can pave the drive, you know, the drive and all that. Looking forward to that, and upgrades to McRae for them, also make it safer for them right there. And my understanding, they're in the old armory over by just past the Millennium Hotel, and they're gonna start to actually tearing that building down actually while the guys are in it. So they're anxious to get going on that property too, so I believe the city sold that, if I understand correctly.
Just trying.
How's the attitude with the force? The attitude with the fire force right now,
Um,
given what's happening?
Given the present state of the city and everything they're going through, morale's down. I can't lie, morale's down a little bit, you know, there's a lot of individuals very, very concerned about their future, the future of, the department, the future of the citizens of this municipality. Just a lot of unknowns right now, so, but they're still coming into work, they know they have a job to do, that's why they're doing it, and we'll continue to provide the best service possible for the citizens.
Well, all of your guys should be very happy with the testimony they gave, because everyone was professional at their testimony, even though I know their hearts were breaking, when they were talking about what could happen. But they did a great job.
Understood, I will pass word on, thank you.
When's the IF contract out?
2015, December 2015.
December?
Yes.
Anything else? And Chief Heavy?
Good afternoon. Chief Muse out of town till Monday, so I've been filling in. I don't have a ton prepared for you. I can talk loosely about the academy. We've had open application period, started a couple months ago now, maybe a month and a half. We look forward to the ordinance being off the news. We do think that that's not really helping us to attract a lot of applicants. But we're pretty well organized. We've got recruiting teams that are going out. We're specifically looking hard for minority officers, natives in particular, and female officers. We didn't have a robust amount of success in those two areas with the last academy, and we're trying to target those groups. We've got some meetings and things that we're part of, and we're getting to have our banner out at. So we'll see how that goes. We're open until the end of May. We have a tentative date right now of November 4th for the academy. Of course, in general, this was already a challenging year for us with our contract situation. We were facing many officers that were destined to leave by the end of the year anyway. You know, whether that'll increase or not as a result of all the labor discussions, you know, I guess we'll watch and see. Another category is our 0 for 12, now 0 for 13 campaign. Our one fatality DUI last year was occurred at the end of April. We have not had one since, so we're about 6 weeks shy of a full calendar year that Anchorage has not had a fatality wreck related to OUI. For the better part of the 2000s, we were averaging about 11 a year. A decade ago, we were at 20 in a year. So the numbers have really driven down hard since 2007. Last year, we came out hard and we said, 0 for 12 was our goal. The year before, in 2011, it had been 3. Last year, we had 1. We had the one in April. So really, we're approaching a calendar year of no alcohol-related fatalities in Anchorage, and we're very proud of that. That's despite the fact that we're seeing cutbacks in federal funding for grants, things like that impact the number of officers we can have out targeting that. But we still have had a lot of success with that. So we are real pleased with the way that's gone.
I know you guys had a campaign, we're wearing the pins, on sexual assault and awareness. Obviously, it's shameful that we have to always look at the per capita rates and say Alaska and Anchorage in particular has amongst the highest in the nation, child crimes against children and sexual assault. I know there's no one pill or magic fix, or else we'd all been using it by now, but any efforts still working on that? Or?
Yes, I don't think that our numbers are gonna have declined, at least not appreciably, through any short-term efforts that we came up with last year. We view that as more of a long-term culture-changing type discussion. We've been working hard with South Central Foundation. They're playing a pretty active role in it. We've been trying to use the issue of sexual assault as a chance for us to outreach more into community policing, forming the partnerships in the community at higher levels. I think at the sergeant level, they've had good relationships with STAR and things like that through the years. But whether at the command levels, we were actually strategically working together with some of these advocacy groups, I don't think that's been our tradition. So I was real pleased with some of the progress that we made in 2012. I think that's still an evolution for us. But for the community in general, that it is a big problem. It's a big problem in the state. I think, I was pleased that we as an agency and as a state are stepping up and just finally laying the cards on the table and saying this is a problem that has been dogging us. For the entire time that I've been with the PD, we've been, our numbers have always been some of the worst in the country. We need to be addressing that as a community. It is a community problem. So our efforts on that are ongoing. We did do a bunch of different things for AFN that were some of the first that we've done, and we're looking for more partnerships with other groups on that.
I just recommend exploring the partnership aspect. I think you're right. It can't, obviously a police presence helps, but years ago, you go through these cycles and you find there was a tow truck driver that used to pick up gals outside the hub. And of course, now it's fire station one. But I remember, and no offense, but we've had cab driver situation, police officers, for God's sakes. We had, it just seems like we need to work with, and particularly where the high of concentration of the bars. We were just talking last night about the safety hour. We're gonna try that for a year and see how it goes. But we really need that intervention to remind people, I don't know what you call it, the wingman effect, or the approach where a group of, combined with police, maybe a trooper, STAR, some of the Native associations, maybe somebody from CHAR, somebody that, that can kind of broach that, the setting and feel comfortable walking in where there's groups of people that have been imbibing. Because I know that a large percentage of the sexual assaults in Anchorage, the data's old, I'll admit, but a good percentage of those were somebody that they met after they've been drinking or out recreating somewhere. Very few strangers sexual assaults in the community, which is a good thing, but it does still happen, and I know it's just something to know.
And that's one of the challenges for us as far as, DWI is a relatively easy crime by comparison. I can throw more blue uniforms into an area that we identify as a high target area, more visibility, and you can have a deterrent effect on it. But sexual assault is frequently one that occurs back in the hotels or in the apartments or homes around the community. Makes it far more of a challenge for the PD alone to do that.
Sure.
And I think that we have spent a large portion of the 2 decades I've been with the department, focusing on it from a purely law enforcement perspective, and that makes it a challenge to address. It happens out of sight. They meet him in the bar. It's an acquaintance. They go back, and then we're taking the report later on. So we have to stay after the partnering aspect of it, and I was pleased with some of our first steps, in particular with South Central, but with Star and some of the other groups that I felt like we were finding some partners who are already doing some things on their own, and now see the PD as one that wants to play with them and see if we can target it.
And just making another suggestion, we've had a lot of dialogue with Char, particularly around issues in bars, conditions on bars, things like that. Can we have that ongoing dialogue and loop them in the partnership too? Because I'm not saying they're part of the problem, but they have an environment that breeds essentially a considerable concern. So rather than have them put up a blocker, you know, because I understand Rum Runners and maybe there were a couple of other bars that were kind of blocking people coming in to do those kind of checks. You know, those are horror stories I don't ever want to hear about. So if we can loop these folks in and have them help partner somehow or another, if there's literature or if there's somebody that has to buy equipment or advertising, maybe they can be the ones that lead that way to get within the industry to do that. I mean, it's got to be more than a poster.
I agree.
I mean, it just needs it. So I just encourage you, and I'll be more than willing to help bridge that too, because you know, believe me, it's not easy to walk into the industry when already they think that what you're trying to do is regulate and tell them what they can't do. And I've walked in a couple times and not necessarily felt very welcome, but I go in anyway, and I keep telling them we've got to work together. It's just a community issue, community problem. So,
Yes.
anything else? For the three department heads, we're coming up on first quarter budget revisions. Is there anything that we should be addressing from the assembly to cover for budget concerns? I'm gonna tell you right up front, fire department, arson investigators, they're not enough. We've had an acting fire marshal for 6-7 years, I think. Not adequate. And I'm working with the fire chief, and I'll be talking with him, IAFF, the municipal manager, put them all on notice. I plan to introduce some funding, and where we get it, we've got, right now, I'm hearing 30 million in surplus. We're gonna find a way.
34 is the last estimate.
We're north of 30, I'll give you that, but I'm just, it's not adequate. We've had arsons, East Anchorage has had multiple arsonists out there working on several buildings, it's not adequate.
26 open cases.
And and the UCR in that category in this city went up, and that's not acceptable. We gotta do something, and let's face it, some of those crimes, that quite often with good investigation, good forensics, we can find who's done it and
Well,
put a stop.
I have some ideas on getting a better bang for our buck, so to speak, with hiring an investigator, so, or an inspector. It's easier to go from inspector and work up to the investigator and assisting an investigator with all the credentials that are required.
That you may have
But
recognized.
coming back the other way is very difficult.
You may have recognized, though, that there's been some concerns about inspectors and planners and community development and all that. So that might be a tough sell to some of my colleagues. I'm telling you now, arson investigator, we had 3 at one point, we're down to 1. We
Yes,
have
we
an
are.
acting fire marshal for years, they're inspection heavy. And I'm not saying that you have a lot of inspectors, I'm just saying there's more inspectors than there are investigators, and it's not acceptable. So I'm not trying to pick on you, I'm just telling you up front, I'm making it notice, and everybody seems to know that I'm coming from it, so where I'm coming from on it. But any of the other departments that,
I think we're preparing some numbers for you. I don't think we're gonna have a bunch. Our SWAT team has some gear that, traditionally, we would go out to the asset forfeiture money. We have done that in the past. That money's been declining the last year or two. We're not getting as much from the feds and the sharing. And some of the equipment is like, higher level vests for our officers when they make entry, and it's me. So, that's one that I don't think is gonna be an exorbitant cost. We're still trying to put that together, but it's about a 27-man team, and we could have better safety equipment for them. So that's one you will see from us.
Just let us know, if you'd earmark that and let us know particularly. Besides Senate administration, I want to know what funding you need for the team, because we can always add it into there and follow it and make sure it gets funded.
Okay.
And
Because sometimes things get dropped along the way.
Sure.
I'll put you on a spot a minute, 2 cheap tasers. Just Tranny and I made sure we got money
out there.
so sometimes it was a philosophy of, I'm not sure we wanna give everybody a taser. Christ's sakes, we give everybody a gun, we give everybody a shotgun. Some people have rifles, long guns. You know, everybody has OC spray, everybody has baton. Why aren't we using every tool we can to try to be available? I mean, I get it that everything's a progression, but has it been a policy that we're not giving every officer a taser? Cause Every trooper has a taser, seems like a lot of communities have gone to that as an extra tool.
You know, I know there is a philosophy that says every officer, every taser. Personally, I don't subscribe to that theory. I have concerns about the way sometimes less lethal is deployed, and it doesn't take long to Google taser applications. Just Google it, and you'll see horror stories of departments that have one tasing out of a large force, and it kills the community support for tasers. I believe tasers are an effective tool for us. I like our officers having them. It gives us a less lethal option that we need. However, I don't want us to have them so far out there. And if you remember the deployment of OC, when OC was deployed, we had officers that were using it way more than in the end it should have been used. And we then had to react as a department and cut back and tighten our policies and more investigations into it. So we are expanding the number of tasers that we have out, no doubt about it. I think we continue to do that, but we want to do it in a manner that isn't just handing out toys to kids and we wind up with a bad tasing that destroys public support for it. So there's the balance that I guess that I have with it. Chief Mew can probably talk more at a later meeting about it. But we are expanding the number. I would tell you we're not expanding them everybody tomorrow.
Well, I wouldn't say everybody tomorrow, but
Do we have enough tasers now that every officer you want to have one has one available?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cause I got a call from a police officer that just taught a class, and the problem was they didn't have tasers to give everybody that took the class and passed it.
We
So I
have
just
enough
wanna make
tasers
sure
for
they're
everybody that we want to have one. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's up to you. I just wanted you guys to have that as an option.
Yes, sir.
Because what happened in Mountain View, one bad death cost us millions of dollars.
Sure.
So I'd rather taser them if we have to. Having had it used on me one time, before we got the first one, I know, remember how it feels. I know how fast you go down,
You do.
and I'm not doing it again.
I'm a firm believer that at least marked unit one, a police officer, we have single officer cars, you don't know when you're gonna need every tool you can. I've been out on a couple of calls myself, as you know, from my past experience, and I was going through and trying to figure out which hand to grab something with. The wind was blowing, the spray wasn't an option. I had my baton out, the guy got too far out. I had my handcuffs in my hand at one point. I mean, I was shoveling gear, going like crazy. If I had a taser, I could've got the guy, and we wouldn't have had to eventually use a dog to get, and he got bit, by the way, because he ran and got away. So, I'm just saying, having those options available would be better than not having an option available. So I'm more personally a fan of expanding it with direction, with policy, and with accountability. So that's another conversation we'll have to talk with Chief and Chief about, but, okay, so,
Yes, I am gonna bring something up that, has been of concern for some years, and that's the Anchorage Safety Center. I believe we're not going to be receiving a $199,000 grant from South Central because it was a federal grant that they received, which they passed along to us. We're right now talking with, Ron Audie, who's with Nana, and Richard Gaunt, who is the actual manager down there at the safety center, about, we've had an increase in violence at the safety center with the addition of spice, with alcohol, a change in demographics. In fact, they're younger, more client-to-client assault, more client-to-staff assault. We are looking to do some building improvements there using CDBG funds that will help protect staff. We're talking the potential of restraints because we've had increases in violence, and we're sort of waiting to make sure that that's all legit through legal. But we believe we're moving in that direction. We have a quiet room, I don't know if you're aware of that, where if somebody's acting up and being disruptive, that basically wakes up the others, and then that can lead to a mini riot or whatever. So we have one quiet room where you're gonna be placed, and the police, you can only have them in there for so long. Police are called immediately as soon as we put them in there. Police come and take them to the jail. So, but that one quiet room, that's one. You have two guys in a fight, who do you put in the quiet room? So, we're talking on ways to be more creative to manage that. We've had a record number of people in the center. The max there right now is 112. We're probably gonna have the fire marshal look at that and see if that is what it should be or not. It's awfully scary in there when you have 90 people there, and it's 1-to-10 ratio of staff to, clients, and like I said, it's scary when you see that many, and they have videos and you can see pictures of that, and, so I'll keep you posted on how the talks with NANA are going. We're working with, police especially, and some with fire. We're trying to have a joint dispatch with fire as far as, so we don't have duplicate people going to calls for, picking up the clients. I mean, APD, this is our public safety problem, because it costs APD a lot of money to be transporting these clients. We can do what we can
And
to
medics.
work with nonprofits to try to get an overflow, because we use Brother Francis right now, who then the overflow is Beans. You know, now we're getting people knocking on the door at ASC, you know, because we broke up the homeless camps, and what do? I mean, do we want it coming out in the news that somebody has frozen to death out on the streets? So, you know, even ASC have a hard time turning people away, but that is a center specifically set for those that qualify under Title 47, you know, behavioral issues that keep them safe at the center. So, it's a growing concern. We're trying to put some creative ideas in place for what we call the next season, which would start in the fall. We're limping along here through the spring.
We may need to get a work session on that if it comes to it. Could you keep us posted what that particular ASC budget is, and what does $199,000 do if you couldn't get it replaced?
Well, the contract that we're paying for right now is 1.5 million, and that's coming out of operating from Department of Health and Human Services. The 199,000 was just an addition to that, and
Right.
has been given to us year after year, except we met with South Central, we haven't heard back from them, but we anticipate that they're not going to have that grant to give us anymore. That doesn't seem like much, but over the last 3 months, we've probably had, what's the total? We had significant overtime needed because of additional staff. So, I mean,
If
if
you just give me a real quick rough, if you can get it, you probably have a work unit. You know, what would that, like for instance, what's it take to keep the van, what's it take if you had the 9 staff, then if you're at max or whatever?
Well, we're talking, ASC, the NANA is actually considering 12-hour shifts for those that work in the center. I think 12 hours is a lot compared to the 8 hours they're working right now. I mean, it's not like police that are working 10 and maybe you add a couple more. It's an abnormal environment. I don't really think it's a good idea, but they're going to test it just through the summer months, which tend to be the slower months, just inside the building, not with the vans. They've suggested an additional 2 FTEs to efficiently run the ASC, and what the goal is to keep APD from having to expend the money they are in transporting clients. So, we'll just keep on and keep it on there to try to improve that, and I'll keep you posted.
And if you can give me a number of how many people are actually transferred from ASC over to jail and non-crim, I'm curious as to where that would, if that number has gone up over that last 3 years, if you've got it. Cause I know if somebody's just really unruly, they're supposed to call, I don't know if the jail comes and gets them, or if it has to be APD taking them over and putting them in under non-crim, so.
Right now, it appears it's APD. We did have a meeting with fire and HHS on the issue. There is more violence going on down there. That does appear something that they can document. We've actually deployed officers down a couple of times to be extra staffing, so we can keep the van on the street.
Right.
And we can keep people safe back at the center. But in general, it does look like they're facing more violence, so that's forcing them to look at things like restraints.
Yeah.
Whether it's a handcuff to a pole, like you see in the jail that's one option that I would have broached to them. They're talking with Muni Legal about it, but the safety center is an issue for us. The one quiet room hits them in that we're scrambling to get somebody down there. If they've got 3 or 4 different things, and some of the videos they did, they've got no place else to put them. So you can't, she's right, it stops them from disrupting other people, but it also stops them from attacking other people. And they have very little options right now.
It's
with
cheaper
that.
to ASC than it is a non-crim rate. I don't know, I wonder what the impact of our budget is as a result of that. I mean, I think that has some number there, there's a number there too, so.
Could be.
It's a good point.
It's definitely a systemic impact. I mean, because we don't have direct costs associated, but if we respond to a man down and the individual's only intoxicated and doesn't necessarily have a medical problem, we'll have units, especially if the police department is busy, we'll have units staged on location upwards of half hour or better, waiting for the van to make its rounds to come back, pick them. We cannot transport an individual once we put them once we break that plane, so to speak, in the back of an ambulance, they have to be transported to a
We
facility,
couldn't just
hospital.
put up a little tub on the top of the ladders on the top of the truck, you know?
We're looking at creative alternatives.
Okay,
Comment.
delete that part of the tape.
Being creative, being creative.
Whatever.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Well, if we're gonna talk about a few things that might pertain at least, to maybe to all three, so you're welcome to stay otherwise. If you have another appointment, I certainly understand. Real quick, like on old business, for the benefit of Mr. Train, I'm not sure if you had it, but, In-N-Out Liquor Bush 2, which is over off Benson, across from, Spinard and Benson. We had invited them to the last Public Safety Committee meeting. We have invited them to, address some of the concerns regarding public inebriates that seem to be congregating around, there's a bus stop there on Benson. There's a pretty nice bus stop with benches. And the concern is that that store is not necessarily catering to, but they're not discouraging clients, patrons, if you will, from amongst that group. And how do we address it? Tom McGrath down the road from Frigid North and Renee, can't remember her last name, but at Lane's Art Supply. And there are several people that are concerned about that. So the holdup on In-N-Out Bush 2 is we're having some difficulty finding their conditional use. But we are certainly looking at, once we get that document, we are looking at having them before the assembly and putting some restrictions on there. Yes.
You may find that before the law was changed 15 years ago, the conditional use was never treated as a separate item.
Right.
And there may not be a piece of paper, because it used to be that when like a transfer of location was approved.
It had to have that in it.
It didn't, it just was part of that process.
I see.
Assemblywoman Clemenson divided it into two. And before that, you will not find actual written conditional uses as you do now.
So we may end up having to,
Well, there's one existing, but there will
Exactly.
be no conditions, you see.
so we may end up having to bring it in and establish conditions then,
Yes.
and of
Yes.
course have them giving them their due process and have them give notices. to
All of
them.
that,
So
yes,
we'll
sir.
do all that. So that's the delay, Mr. Training, and,
Well,
I mean,
I remember Cheryl.
may lean on you. I do too. She-
Fondly, of
we had some
course.
conversation.
Of course, there's a road named after her in Anchorage. It goes nowhere.
VFW.
She did.
It does. It's
It
a
goes
short
nowhere.
period. It's a short, I've been on the drive there. Be careful. She was in my district. Now, come
I'm
on.
on now.
VFW Post had both of these locations, I might add, have had recent notice of violations. VFW Post, we're working on some conditions. We thought we had an agreement worked through. They were negotiating. Mr. Ross is representing the VFW, and Dennis Wheeler has assigned a new deputy attorney to work on. But in the middle of all this, we get another serving to a non-club member. So Ms. Johnson
Serving a
last-
second time to a non-member.
Yeah, and if you listen to the story as it goes, it was a private function, and the investigator slipped in, and then, when they asked if his name was on the list, cause there was some member host that was going around making sure everybody was listed on the piece of paper. The concern is that they're not running a tight enough club. The concern obviously is, every time you talk to them, it's a club, it's a bar, it's a bar, it's a club, and they just, I don't think they quite understand that it's a club that has a bar license to operate within their club. They're not a bar. And so depending on the
Only serve
mentality.
members.
Exactly. Now, they can serve the member with a guest, but they have to make the transaction through the member, not the guest. So anyway, that one's coming before us. You saw it last night, a new introduction.
I know.
And I don't know what it's gonna look like with the conditions, but I thought we were getting somewhere, and then all of a sudden this comes up, and I don't know what that's gonna, but I gotta be honest with you, the trash, I think it was a one-off issue. The issue about the, noise is the biggest thing for me, and
Right,
now
that
this
was-
particular,
We could have mitigated all of that, but the problem was with this last violation, they do have an issue.
so we'll work on that. We'll work on that and see what goes there. So now we're at, and it wasn't on the agenda, but, I wanna make sure, we talked to Mr. Coffey last night, I think we talked to a couple of folks last night a little bit about, and Mr. Rendon had asked, could we, have a meeting here before the Public Safety Committee on the taxi cab, amendment that Ms. O'Sanders put in Title 11. And I can tell you right up front that it's been my intent all along that, much like we did with, AO 37, where the administration, who are the sponsor of the ordinance, has a work session, and I don't necessarily know if we wanna do it the following week, but we could
Then
even
the
do it at the
victims
same
have a
time.
chance, you know,
And then the, other interests involved have a chance to come approach the assembly and have a work session as well. So it's my intent that we do that. But it was brought up this morning, Mr. Coffey, if you don't mind, I'd like you to explain, you know, what your position, I like where you're headed with this. It's something that we've been discussing. So if Mr. Coffey, if you don't mind, I'm gonna give Mr. Coffey.
I think what I've learned here, and it's kind of funny, I was involved in the cab wars in the borough city unification days, a long, long time ago. But what I've learned here in the recent month or so is that there are issues that need to be addressed. That the lengthy ordinance that some 67 pages is before you was, in my view, not properly vetted. It was never taken to the Transportation Commission, which is of course charged with the duties and responsibilities associated with the regulation of the taxi cabs. And they're holding a work session on the 26th of March, 25th of March, yeah, I'm sorry, you're on the 26th, they're on the 25th, in advance of their regularly scheduled meeting. Mr. Andy Turney is their chairman, and they were concerned here at the last meeting about the fact that they had not been consulted or advised, and so they wanted to read the proposal and make some recommendations to you guys. And so that, all of that led me to the idea that perhaps it's 67 pages of things that you would, the assembly, at least when I was there, and probably now, it's a very technical, detailed, regulatory process of long standing. And it seems to me it ought to go to the people who are charged with the duty and responsibility. So my thought was maybe you'd want to consider sending the ordinance over to them formally, not having them just sort of pick it up, which is what they did, but send it over to them formally, and they could, some of the stuff that needs doing is regulatory in nature, which doesn't even necessitate the, you guys coming
Changing
into
the
the
ordinance.
role. And some of it may be statutory, require ordinance changes and so on, but at least you'd have a level of understanding and expertise from people who deal with this all the time. And I've spoken with Mr. Musser and of course with the folks in the industry, and the idea of having them, for want of a better word, vet this ordinance would probably be a really good idea. If you guys vet it and take it on, it's another major project. It is a significant change from existing practices, existing long-standing practices, and it would seem to me not the best choice to avoid using those who are knowledge and experience to wit the commission, at least as a sounding board and a recommending board to you guys before you take any action on it.
I like the idea and the approach, and frankly, and I'll put it on record, much like AO 37, I think we need to go slower, and particularly in this case here, when you're talking a wholesale rebate, Mr. Tracy.
Just that we're not gonna meet again until the 26th. So the earliest is an assembly, we can send this to the Transportation Commission, will be after they've already had their meeting on the 25th.
Yeah,
So
but they're
what we-
only doing an hour and a half, so in an
Well, we
hour,
can't, I just
hour and
wanna
a half,
let
so
you know
they won't
that.
be done in an hour and a half.
Just wanna let you know that on the 26th, we can make that motion to send it to the commission where it should go. Cause this thing was originally put together by Oceander out of Eagle River. It was designed to solve the problem of taxi cabs not going to Eagle River. But it doesn't address that issue. It is a whole rewrite of everything. So it does need to go to the Transportation Commission to at least go through all 68 pages. And this has happened before. Do you remember our ethics ordinance? It went from 5 pages to 55 pages.
Which order?
The ethics.
Oh. yeah.
Went from 5 pages to 55 pages and didn't make it any better. So I do wanna send this to Transportation Commission. I appreciate their response on it.
And I will be the first to tell you that even though I know that we would make ourselves available in this committee, there are four standing members, 2 of which are gone today, out of state, unavailable. But I think the better process, if we're going to have all the assembly persons in one room, or at least potentially, to hear the concerns on both ends of this, it would be a better place at a work session. So I suspect we may see this go to the commission for review and for recommendations and for, moving forward, maybe perhaps a position paper, and then a work session back to the assembly. I know that Ms. Oceander last night, I put her on the record asking specifically, I thought we had the work session, it was canceled this past Friday, and she said, well, I really do want she's actually saying she really would like the work session. And as you say, Mr. Covey, it's a pretty lengthy document and a wholesale change. It needs good vetting and good review and good explanation why these changes and what it's supposed to be and intended to be. So I'm gonna allow a few moments since you guys have come out all this way in your time. Is there anything that you would like to say, briefly about this? I mean, clearly, you might be amongst 3 or 4 people here. We're not sponsors of this particular ordinance, and in fact, I think Mr. Trombley co-signed on with Ms. Oceana.
He did.
I don't think he know what he got himself into, but that's.
It was an
another story.
accommodation, Mr. Chairman, because of her imminent departure.
Thanks.
Well, I know,
Just give your name because we're on record.
oh, Jackie Ransom. I know that, we've been involved with all of the people that Ms. Osiander, said that wants this new legislation. We've worked as association with CHAR, we've worked with your Public Safety Committee, and we've worked for years and years with, the different agencies with different concerns that they individually had. We've thought out of the box, we've come up with ideas, we've suggested things, and personally, I haven't seen much of anything happen except Osiander's complete rewrite. Nobody has tried to take some of those ideas and use them to correct the situation they say is a problem. You know, the parking problem for CHAR's parking, no taxis at bar closing. But they don't help us with the parking problem.
Well,
Gas is $4 a gallon, and I just, we've come up with numerous ideas, not just with parking, not with the bars, now the police, which is also impacting our thing, they're not even giving citations for, commercial vehicles anymore. They're saying, go online and, tell the, thing, that's impacting me as a business owner. The police aren't even, writing
Are you
citations.
talking about at taxi stands? At marked taxi stands?
Taxi stands, they don't, police on the weekends or nights. We have one, enforcement officer. We have a 24-hour business, and we have one 40-hour enforcement officer. So it's like, they wanna open the door open, and but they can't enforce what they got now. And they wanna open the door open and put all this stuff out there, and everybody's gonna lose, right? It's gonna open it up to a lot of, I think, lawlessness. People will not be able to make a living. And I don't care what they say, when they say, oh, well, it'll be improved competition, it won't. You still have to pay $4 a gallon for gas. You still have to pay $950 or $700 a month for dispatch. You have to pay $6,000 to $7,000, $8,000 a year for commercial liability only insurance. That doesn't count the cost of the car, the equipment, the maintenance, or anything else. And having cars downtown between 10 and 3 a.m., like she wants to put a bunch of cars and say, well, nobody can operate for 3 hours a day and pay all those costs, because those costs aren't per hour. Those are fixed costs. Nobody can economically do that, and we're not a non-profit. We don't have grants. We don't have that. We're a for-profit person. And the drivers, they work 12 hours a day and no insurance, no medical, no sick leave, no benefits. And if they make their money in the 12 hours on certain days and nights, they make it, but that has to carry over for the slow times. So if a guy works 2 or 3 calls for bar closing, because you're not gonna get a whole lot by the time you pick somebody up, take them all the way home and rush back, it's over. It just won't work. And that's why we wanna participate, but also, we have, tried to, taxis on patrol. I've talked, my husband and I went to the national, convention, trying to get the police, they wanna partner with people. Our industry would love to partner with Taxis on Patrol. It's a national program. I paid the first entry money, to get it, but I don't find anybody, very enthusiastic about partnering with the taxi community. We want to do a lot of things, but we're not getting,
I would like to talk to you about that one offline, because I remember you broaching that, and I think I have a creative solution that we might be able to work together with. Ms. Trainer,
Yeah.
question?
You brought up bar break. We changed the ordinance last night that if bars want to, they can apply and stay open until 4 o'clock. We're trying to give the people time to get home. Not every bar is gonna do it, but at least from 3 to 4, we do have the option of not throwing the people in the street without a ride home, so that may end up helping.
I don't think those people are interested in getting, I can't say that because I don't know, but a lot of those people aren't interested in getting a cab to go home.
Okay.
They're interested in continuing the party usually, and that's what the adjoining businesses are saying. They're out there walking around having a party and getting in
We're not gonna be
arguments and
able to
stuff.
because bar break, as far as serving alcohol, stops at 3 o'clock,
So
no matter
then
what
that might
size
get
bar
them
you
going,
have.
yeah. But
all shut down.
if the cars don't have parking place, I think there should be 3 parking places, 2 to 3 parking places in front of every bar downtown. Because
And enforce so they can make sure
enforced.
people move through.
And they can put the parking, commission is selling those little bags over the meters now. The bars they have to be part of the solution too. They can buy those bags, the parking thing's selling it to private people anyway, I see them all over town, this is for so-and-so, this is for so-and-so. Why aren't the char and the bars providing parking? Coots, there's always cabs in front of Coots, there's 4 to 5 cabs. Everybody knows where they are, they walk, stumble out, they go get in the cabs and they go. The cabs always know they can park. Gas is a very expensive thing. And there's also a safety problem trying to dash out in between cars and double park.
Yep.
Sorry for taking it.
We have a
sorry.
few more minutes. Is there any other comments that?
I'd just like to say that a lot of the perceived or actual shortfalls in service are all being worked on right now. There's solutions for all of them. One is the bar break problem, the Eagle River problem, the handicap problem. There's already solutions in place in front of the commission to take care of those. And none of that is addressed at all by the proposed new ordinance, so.
Well, I appreciate that, and I will tell you that, just in response briefly, and you know this to be true, you've been involved, and I know Ms. Smith and, you've all been involved here at times in the Public Safety Committee. We have made efforts, the administration signed on and was going to do the taxi cab stands where the loading zones, I walked personally with Downtown Partnership Executive Director and the traffic engineer, and we identified places to be assigned placed, and we were going to try that for a year. And to my knowledge, it never occurred. And I called back and wanted to know where the funds, what kind of problem was it? Was it a funding problem? What would they need? What did they need? And I never got a response back. So I apologize for letting that one slip and not doing my own personal follow-up to make sure it happened. But we did attempt, from the municipal standpoint, to make that available, as an option for, I know off the road for sure, and it wouldn't hurt to, instead of the double parking, to have places for the cabs to stand while they're, legally while they're picking up and dropping off. Because we had a tremendous problem, particularly in front of the Kodiak when they were going through that one little phase, that people would stop along Fifth Avenue. And that's a very high-speed roadway, people going one way, and it was just continuing. And even though they had 2 other lanes to go to, that was right just beyond a regulated intersection. So anyway, we're going to continue, I think Mr. Coffey is right. I think we're going to continue to move this, slow it down, move this to the commission for their review and results. I would encourage you all to read the proposed ordinance. It's now available, it's online, and if there are some suggestions, I don't know who the focal point would be to get through. I know you have your own commission group, industry group, and contact. I know that even though we're not sponsors of the bill, I think I had conversations with several of you about my own individual concerns.
Well, also part of that is, when she was developing this bill, she was approached, there was rumors that she was, concerned in writing that. And we approached her, I personally approached her, I know several of the other people in the industry approached her and said, we'd like to sit down and, help you draft something good, we wanna be part of the answers to your concerns. She was actually rude to me at that Eagle River thing. I drove out to Eagle River to that Transportation Commission meeting, and she says, nope, I got it taken care of. She didn't want to know anything about our industry, and I thought that was pretty.
Well, I'll apologize on behalf of my colleague, I hope I'm never
No,
rude to you.
I would like to point out really quickly, and I don't know if I got this through to you guys, but the transportation officer presented a study that he did over the last few years, and call volumes, wait times, all these kinds of things, population growth, the things that really are what we should decide on how to add permits, whatever they are, if they're a specialty permit, whatever it is. That's the information we not just anecdotal information.
Sure.
And he presented it. I wanna give you a stat that he had there. 1.5 million calls last year. He had only 200 complaints in his office. That's less than, that's not even worth talking about, right?
Sure.
That is a big indication to me that we're doing something right. We must be doing a good job. Certainly, we're not saying that there isn't areas that we may need to deal with. And we were presented this problem in Eagle River. We went out and had a special meeting out in Eagle River, which we've never done in the past,
Sure.
that, to my knowledge. We addressed it, and a week later, we had a draft from our attorney that said, hey, we recognize this. This is something we could live with, but just throwing permits out for the Anchorage Bowl is not going to make them go to Eagle River. So we specifically had to give a lot of thought into saying, okay, they need to start in Eagle River, the calls have to start in Eagle River, the people have to, you know what I mean? If they bring somebody to Anchorage, they have to go back there, otherwise they'll just end up like a regular taxi here, transporting the people in the Anchorage Bowl area, and you won't have service in Eagle River. So you have to be specific. Her ordinance has nothing to say, this is gonna be specific and help Eagle River. Just throwing a number out there or whatever it is not going to solve the problem. So we were specific, we know our industry, we are here to make sure it's profitable for everyone involved, and that includes the customers. We wanna make sure it's vital for the drivers, the owners, the operators, that the customers are getting picked up on at a reasonable time, in a reasonable fashion, by proper people in safe cars. That's our job here for now, and we really do appreciate your guys' support in getting this drawn out and giving it some thought, because there is so much mess in that ordinance, and I don't think the city wants to take that on. I really don't.
I tend to agree, and
Yeah.
for all of you, I hope that as you approach me, I hope I'm not perceived as rude at times, so, if so, I apologize for that. Ms. Train?
Thank you very much.
Anything? All right, we're gonna officially go off record in the meeting. It is 1 p.m. This is a
Good.
record.
It's a record.
Right on time.
Right on time.
And that is on time.
How do I stop this? Oh, I